I never thought my worst nightmare would happen in my own backyard. The HOA president, Karen Dunn, took a power saw to my nephew's treehouse while he was still inside. Her excuse: she called it removing an eyesore. Funny thing is, the only thing removed that day was my self-control, watching my nephew loaded into an ambulance crying in pain. My name's Mark Hale. I'm an Army vet now, just a guy trying to keep things steady for my sister and her 8-year-old boy Evan. His dad works out of state, so it's mostly the three of us. My job since I came home has been simple: fix what's broken, stay calm, don't make things worse. That morning, the only thing on my mind was helping Evan build his fort. A real one. 2 oak trees in our side yard, thick posts, deck screws instead of nails. He'd measure, I'd cut. He'd start a screw, I'd drive it home. The smell of pine, the sound of sawdust falling in sunlight, it was our thing. He named it Fort Kickbutt. My sister rolled her eyes at the name, but I told her every fort needs a name that scares off the enemy. I just didn't know who the enemy was yet. Karen Dunn was the self-appointed queen of our HOA. Power suit, even on Saturdays, clipboard like a weapon smile that could cut glass. She believed every lawn should salute, every mailbox should match. When she saw our fort, she saw chaos. An unapproved structure, she called it. She started leaving notes, angry little manifestos tucked under the welcome mat. I read them, folded them neat, and used them to start the grill. I figured she'd run out of stationery before I ran out of patience. But that day she came in person. Hands on her hips, voice sharp enough to sand wood. "Mark," she barked, "this is your final warning. That thing violates 17 covenants." I didn't even look up from the 2x4 I was checking. 17, huh? That's impressive. You must have been up all night. She didn't find it funny. You have 24 hours to take it down, or the association will act. I asked what that meant. Another fine, another note. She just pointed that perfectly manicured nail at me and said, "You'll see." I remember Evan looking at me wide-eyed. "Is she going to break our fort, Uncle Mark?" I smiled, told him no one would dare. I wish that had been true. An hour later, I heard a sound. I'll never forget the high-pitched scream of a reciprocating saw. I turned and saw her, Karen Dunn, standing next to the fort, cutting through one of the main supports. My blood went cold. "Karen, stop! Evan's inside!" I shouted, running toward her. She didn't stop. The saw screamed, the wood cracked, and the fort collapsed. Evan's scream cut through everything, pure terror. I dug through the wreckage with my bare hands until I found him. His little leg bent wrong, tears and dust streaking his face. The neighbors ran out. Paul called 911. Mrs. Gwynn stood frozen on her porch, hand over her mouth. Karen just stood there, saw dangling from her hand, looking almost proud. Deputy Torres arrived fast. Calm, professional. He saw the scene, saw Evan crying under the boards, saw Karen still holding the saw. Mrs. Gwynn pointed right at her. She did it. She cut it down. He didn't even hesitate. "Ma'am, put the saw down." She tried to argue, said it was HOA property, said she had the right. He repeated firm this time. "Ma'am, drop it." When the cuffs clicked shut, it was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. But when the ambulance took Evan away, I looked down at my hands, raw, shaking, and realized this wasn't over, not even close. That night, when the house was quiet, I sat alone and felt it guilt. Crushing, ugly guilt. I kept replaying it in my head. What if I'd taken him inside sooner? What if I'd just torn the thing down myself? Maybe I'd pushed too hard, provoked her. Maybe it was my fault. For a few hours I believed that. I almost convinced myself to just drop it. Then I saw Evan's face again in my mind, the way he whispered, "She broke Fort Kickbutt, Uncle Mark." That did it. I'd been through worse in combat, and I knew one thing: when someone hurts your family, you don't quit. You get up and you fight smarter. So I built my own kind of fort, a legal one. My neighbor Paul, the IT guy, brought over his laptop. We pulled his doorbell footage. It caught everything. Karen walking up, raising the saw, Evan's head visible in the window right before it fell. She couldn't say she didn't see him. It was all there, pixel by pixel. I filed for the deputies' body cam footage too. When we synced them side by side, the doorbell and the body cam, it told the whole story in cold, clinical truth. "There's your intent," Paul said quietly. He was right. Then there was Mrs. Gwynn, the sweet old lady who'd seen everything. She remembered every detail, the saw, the sound, the way Karen's eyes looked. Her testimony lined up perfectly with the video. Together they formed an airtight case. The district attorney, Miss Davies, took one look at our evidence and said, "This isn't just assault. This is a felony with motive." Still, Karen wasn't done. The HOA called a special meeting to manage the chaos. The news vans were already parked down the block, and I went just to listen. Halfway through the meeting, the doors banged open, and in walked Karen, violating her restraining order in front of 100 people. She looked wild hair, messy eyes blazing. She grabbed the mic from the board, Vice President Arthur, and screamed, "I am the victim here. I've dedicated my life to this neighborhood." The crowd gasped. Torres was already there for security. He moved in calm, steady. But then I saw him. Karen's son Kyle standing near the exit, fists clenched. When Torres touched Karen's arm, Kyle snapped. "Get your hands off my mom!" he shouted, pulling a gun from his waistband. Everything froze. My brain kicked into survival mode, distance angles, exits. But Torres and his deputies handled it like pros. They talked him down. "Son, put the gun on the floor." Torres said, voice calm as stone. For a second I thought he'd shoot, but then his shoulders slumped and he set the gun down. Deputies rushed in, cuffed him, cuffed Karen again. That should have been the end. But it only made me wonder why. Why go this far over a damn treehouse? The answer came a few days later in an anonymous email. It said, "Check the property sale for 312 Willow Creek Lane and ask Arthur why he's so quiet." I did. The house behind mine had just sold record price to an out-of-state developer. And Arthur, he looked like a man living with a secret. When I confronted him, he cracked. Karen, he said, had made a deal 10 grand in consulting fees from a realtor if she cleared the lake view for the buyers. The only thing blocking that view, 2 oak trees and 1 kid's fort. He handed me a folder, emails, texts, all of it. Her words in writing, "Need to clear sight lines. Taking direct action tomorrow morning." That was the motive. Not rules, not community standards, money. She sold out a child safety for $10,000. I gave it to the DA. Miss Davies looked at the messages, tapped the page, and said, "This is the ball game." The charges were upgraded. Felony assault with financial motive. But the system moves slow. In the meantime, her insurance company refused to pay a dime. Willful act, they called it, meaning intentional crime. No coverage. That hit her hard. And when desperate people panic, they do stupid things. She sent her nephew to threaten our key witness, Mrs. Gwynn, tried to scare an old woman into recanting. What she didn't know was Paul's dash cam caught the whole thing, clear video of her goon leaning into Mrs. Gwynn's face, saying she should be careful, old people have accidents. Paul handed it to me, and I sent it straight to Torres. The next morning, Karen's bail was revoked. The judge's voice was calm but final. "Bail is a privilege, not a right. You have abused it." 2 deputies stepped forward, cuffed her in front of everyone. No power suit, no smirk, just shock. She was done. Her downfall was official when the HOA board met again. Arthur led the vote to remove her as president. No one defended her. The motion passed gavel down. Her little empire collapsed in one clean stroke. Then came the civil trial. Karen was brought in wearing gray instead of orange, but she looked smaller somehow, like the air had gone out of her. Our lawyer, Ben Carter, walked the jury through the evidence, the videos, the texts, Mrs. Gwynn's testimony, and then Evan's deposition. On the screen, my nephew sat in a chair, red cast, propped up, his voice small but steady. "The shaky lady cut the fort's leg," he said. Then it fell on me. That was it. Simple truth from a kid who'd lived it. You could feel the air leave the room. The verdict came fast. We find in favor of the plaintiff. Damages $1.65 million. Enough to cover the bills, the pain, the nightmares, and then some. When the judge adjourned, Karen just sat there, pale, shaking, everything she'd built gone. Her title, her reputation, her money, her power. I didn't celebrate. I just walked out of that courtroom and took a deep breath. The fight was over. Justice doesn't always come with fireworks or applause. Sometimes it's quieter, a gavel hitting wood, a woman in handcuffs, a kid finally sleeping without fear. And maybe that's the real lesson. When someone abuses power, you don't shout them down. You outlast them. You gather your proof, stand your ground, and let the truth do the cutting.